I just got a text. Mario, our coach, turned caviar into a Pop-Tart.
Yeah, the kid can play a little bit. I didn't know who he was until I watched that Arizona game.
And I think Penn State's very, very dangerous. Not because they're good. They just keep getting lucky. I think Georgia has exhausted all their gas to get to this point.
Listen,
or
game
whatever.
day saved game day by 2 acquisitions.
Going for the corner. Touchdown! Alabama! And the kick is blocked. What is he looking at? What a hit! Ball's free. Nittany's in the house. It's scooped up by the Ducks. Marcus Freeman. You believe that? Unbelievable. They got blockers. Boise State. Auburn's going to win the football game. Up and blocked. Sneaks is going to throw. Clemson. Touchdown.
Thank you for tuning in to BTN Sports, where we go beyond the numbers. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Turn on the notifications so you can stay up to date with all our latest content and episodes. Welcome to the BTN Sports Podcast. My name is Andy Hernandez, alongside my co-host Peter Mirabal and our other co-host Nevin Shapiro. Welcome to the Christmas Palace, sir.
Nice to see you guys.
What's going on?
Likewise.
A lot of entertainment this past weekend. Can't wait to get into it. Sure, there's going to be a lot of love and kumbaya coming our way. And, I'm going to let you guys lead the way, as always.
So what was your overall thoughts on the weekend, starting on Friday? Boise State manhandled UNLV. It wasn't even close. That game, we thought going into it was going to be a closer game because the first match they had was a close game.
Yeah. They did what they had to do. It's not a great conference, obviously. Boise, they're hanging their hat on Ashton Genty, who's been amazing all year. Certainly no slight to him. And, in a 3-point loss to Oregon. Other than that, that's their resume. Ashton Genty and losing to 3 in Oregon. So I guess, in the eyes of the or in the rules of the playoff format, they're in. They're a 3 seed, and I know we're going to get into it, like some certain changes that need to be made for the playoff format, but that's one example. Not that Boise's not deserving of being in, but are they really the number 3 best team in America? I think we all know the answer to that. But they punched their ticket. They're in. They earned it based on the parameters. They're in.
Yep. Yeah, they got in. So let's go through every game, and then we'll recap on the playoff, the selection of the playoff committee. So let's go through the Arizona State-Iowa State game. You were on Iowa State. A lot of the big money was on Iowa State. I was looking, sharps were on Iowa State, and Arizona State just manhandled or dismantled Iowa State.
Yeah. So one comment I want to make with regards to the selections I made. So last week, we filmed early. So it's not easy to pick games on a Monday when you have a whole week of line moves, shuffling this and that. You take the L, whatever it is. It's no complaining. But I would have been on Iowa State anyway, no matter what happened during the week. But the one thing that I was not prepared for was Arizona State was crisp, as you found out the week before. So
I told you.
So I should have listened. I should have listened to you,
right?
As it was, but man, they looked. They're a great story, and I use Arizona State. We're going to get into our discussion later on about Miami, and obviously for the hometown people and this and that. But Arizona State's a perfect example about how you don't need 5 years.
Right.
Kenny Dillingham did it in 2 years. Herman Edwards destroyed that program, bringing in all former pro guys, and they were on probation, and it was a complete mess. And what that kid has done is nothing short of incredible. And they're in the playoffs, and are they deserving of a number 4 seed? I say no, but they're deserving to be in the playoffs based on the format. And an unbelievable job turned it around, and they've been hot, man. They've been hot. They've been playing great ball, and you know what? I'm sort of glad Iowa State didn't get in, because I thought they were a fraud the whole way through.
Would have been boring to watch. Arizona State, I feel like it's more fun to watch. And I don't think anybody wants to play Arizona State right now. I mean, I don't think you want to play them because they can beat anyone right now in the country.
They're on house money too.
Yeah, they're on house money.
They're feeling loose. Unfortunately, I think they had a really bad matchup coming because I think Texas is going to absolutely pound Clemson. But that's the luck of the draw. Who knows? They got a shot. Listen, man, you always got a shot. You know what I mean? They got some solid dudes, and I thought them missing their starting wideout was going to be a big loss for them, and meant nothing.
You gave me a stat that something like 80% of their offense went through that receiver or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, I heard that on one of the outlets that I follow. He was a big production guy. Like 80% of their offense. Him and Cam Scatterbo were 80. Just of the passes downfield, he was like their whole offense. But whatever it is, next man up, and that guy that's what a real coach does. You adjust. You don't make excuses. You adjust.
That kid Scatterbo's a beast.
Man, what a cool. Listen, the name alone, he's a Hall of Famer.
What's your name? Cam Scatterbo.
Yeah, the kid can play a little bit. I didn't know who he was until I watched that Arizona game.
I still don't know who he is.
You do know who you do know a lot, though, is the quarterback from North Texas.
Oh, God. Chandler Morris, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Did you buy the gear?
Has he resurfaced?
I don't know if they found them.
No bounty put on.
I just saw him. I
was just in North Texas. I went looking for him. I couldn't find them.
I could have sworn I just saw him on the last episode of Yellowstone.
Don't tell me how it ends.
Yeah, no, I won't. Okay.
All right, so let's go to let's go on to Georgia, Texas. I was on Texas personally. Not like I made a pick on the show. I thought Texas for sure would beat Georgia in a second game. It's hard to beat a team back-to-back. Texas had every opportunity in that game to win it, and they just gave it away. And I have a question for you, and I know you're going to give your feedback on that game, but if a third matchup happens, does Sarkisian consider putting Arch Manning?
Starting Arch Manning.
Yeah.
I already knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's on the table, right?
Well, let me put it this way. Here's a good analogy to that, or a response to that. Nick Saban, Jalen Hurts, Tua.
I thought about the same thing. Yep. And by the way, we didn't speak about this on our production meeting. I like throwing things at Nevin that he's not ready for, just for the authenticity of the show.
I like to test them.
You got to do what you got to do to win, man. It's a one-game season. You got to do what you got to do to win.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no feelings involved. Don't catch feelings. This is what it is.
Yeah. And did Sarkisian mess up by not putting him in
earlier?
Yeah. I mean, his stats were good, but he had the 2 picks, and he gets those. He looks like he gets nervous. Georgia's there was no excuse for Texas to lose that game. The adrenaline of Georgia losing their quarterback, I think, really propelled them, and it was a better showing for Texas this go round. I do not think Georgia would beat them if they do end up meeting in the national title, although it is in Atlanta. But there's no way this guy Gunnar Stockton would.
So the blueprint has been put out on Georgia on how to beat them. If you have a quarterback that can run, okay, and an offense that has a lot of motion, there's some weaknesses there. They struggle with that. And I think if you're Sarkisian, you have to consider, because Manning can run.
Yeah, he's a lot. Yeah, people stereotype him like his uncle, or both of his uncles, and that's not who he is.
That boy runs a 4.4 40. 4.4 40. He's one of the fastest guy on the team. If not the fastest guy on the team.
Georgia Tech was giving them problems because of that.
Yeah,
that's a great question, Andy, that you just asked. Yeah. But the thing is, how do you switch up? If you switch up, you switch up immediately in this first game against Clemson, because you can't just kill a guy's confidence. Like, if they play a third time, I would then make that move. If they were to play,
I think this is how you do it, in my opinion. You give Ewers 2 or 3 series. See how he starts. If he goes 3 and out, 3 times in a row, doesn't put the ball in the end zone, you make the call, you make the switch, and you put Georgia on their heels.
I really think Texas is positioned well for this run.
Yeah.
I really do. First of all, they got the 5 seed like we've spoke about all year. And
we'll get into that. But what are your final thoughts on the Georgia-Texas game?
I just think Georgia's offense is nondescript. I've said it all year. I said at the beginning of our podcast when we started doing it, I thought Georgia would take 3 losses this year. They were damn close to taking it. And unless they win a national title, they will take it. And I also heard Nick Saban echo exactly what I had said. Not that he was listening to me, but he echoed exactly what I had said on our podcast last week. This week on game day, he said, just Georgia doesn't start ever. They find themselves in these holes, as reference to the fact of when they played Alabama, when they played Mississippi, barely getting past Tennessee, even though they were at home. They just don't start quick. They really don't start at all. They've had a couple of surges of great offensive football, but other than that, they've been a defensive laden team, and I just think that a lot of that has to do with just the attrition of what they lost last year. And you don't just replace Brock Bowers and McConkey. They just lost a lot. Plus the guy Colby Young, who transferred from Miami, he's out. They're really limited offensively, and they don't have stud running backs. They've always had a stable 3-4 guys. It's by committee now, And so I don't think it's a vintage Georgia team. If they win it all, I'm going to be surprised.
Yeah, it'll be one of Kirby Smart's best coaching jobs for sure.
Yeah, and he's an amazing coach. And I just see how calm he stays, and the moment's never too big for him. He reminds me so much of Jimmy Johnson. I've said it before on this show. Yep. He's just got that stoic, we're good either way, just play ball,
right. Right.
Unlike some other guys we know.
So what are your so let's go to the Penn State Oregon game. Oregon started off fast. I thought that game was over. Penn State comes back, makes it a ball game. Second half happens. Oregon starts to pull away. Then Penn State kind of starts hanging around, has an opportunity there at the end. Adler takes a shot on second down, throws a pick, game ends. What are your thoughts overall? You had Penn State in this game.
I did have Penn State, and the only reason I had Penn State, which is because of the line. I thought it was a very deceiving line, and I thought Oregon should have been favored by 6.5, under a touchdown, but 6.5, I think was the proper number. It landed right about there, but Penn State had their chances to cover also, and I think Penn State's very, very dangerous, not because they're good, and I've said this all year. They just keep getting lucky, man. This guy, James Franklin, keeps stepping in shit. You lose the Big Ten championship, and you end up with a better seeding than Oregon.
Yep.
Not ranking-wise, but in the bracket. They play SMU, who they should bulldoze in Happy Valley. And, it pays to lose. It pays to lose in those scenarios. And I don't think Penn State's a great team in any way, shape, or form. I don't think anyone does either. And I don't even know if you could make an argument for them to be in the playoffs based on strength of schedule. But based on the parameters set forth, they got 2 great losses, Oregon and Ohio State.
Right.
If that's how we're judging the playoff format these days, I think they're dangerous, Penn State, because their defense is very good, although they just gave up 30-something to Oregon.
Yeah.
And they do have a very solid running game and offensive line. Aller's, I think Aller's better. I put him right in the same level as a Carson Beck. I don't see a great separation there if you're comparing certain teams. I think he's a better quarterback than Will Howard.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a lot of the same inconsistencies that Carson Beck has. He has flashes where you're like, wow, this guy's a first rounder. And then you have things like that second down throw, which, is a head scratcher.
Quinn Ewers is the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Quinn Ewers is the same.
Yeah,
when you know what I mean?
They fall into that category.
I think the best quarterback all year has been Cam Ward, and not to get into that conversation now, we're going to get into some of that. But he's been the most consistent quarterback. And Shedeur Sanders is pretty good too, I would say. But Cam Ward's been amazing all year, most consistent guy all season from that position.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I feel about that. But Penn State got an easy draw. Oregon got a tough draw.
And then let's go to the Clemson SMU game. Clemson comes out, ball of fire. They get up big, 21-7. They go into the half, and SMU finds a way to find themselves tied with like 20 seconds left in the game.
SMU's comeback got them into the playoff.
Agreed.
Because if they get bulldozed the way it was going,
Alabama's in.
yes. And this is my thought on SMU. And I'm just going to make. So first of all, Clemson backed into the championship, but they get their credit. Miami beat Syracuse. We're not talking about Clemson. So they did what they had to do. So you can't fault them for playing in a bullshit conference and just backing in. But they took care of business and they won. That being said, SMU, they are deserving of the playoff spot because they made their conference championship. What I don't think, and I think everybody would agree with me, is Alabama's certainly a better team than SMU. But if you're taking it on the parameters, how do you not put a conference championship loser ahead of a 3-loss team? Nick Saban said it, and I think his comments were just amazing. Are we rewarding wins, or are we rewarding strength of schedule? This is the committee's biggest issue beyond this year. Because it's, let's be happy that we got the 12-team playoff. I think it's great. I think it's what we all wanted. And to have expected it to be perfect, you take what you can get when you can get it. So you get the 12-team playoff, and now we got to make some changes and alterations to it. And that's how I feel about the SMU-Clemson match, that matchup. I think they both deserve to be in based on Clemson winning. Do I think SMU's a better team than Alabama or Miami or Ole Miss? No. But do they deserve a spot? It's hard to say they don't. Mm-hmm. That's just, being as honest as you can be.
Yeah.
We all watch the same games.
I give credit to SMU. They fought, that game could have gotten out of hand on them, and they stayed there. And Rhett, Lashley's done a good job with that team to even have them in that position to win the ACC. I thought, it was an incredible season. I thought it would have been a disservice to leave them out, losing one game in the conference. It's tough, even though they're not better than Alabama, right? We can all agree.
Right.
Absolutely.
I don't think anyone, I think the only ones around the country who feel otherwise are SEC fans or Bama fans.
Right. And the other thing you got to think about is the heat that the committee got last year because of Florida State being left out, Alabama getting put in. They do something like that, leaving SMU out, Alabama in again, it would have caused, I think, more controversy than leaving Alabama out this time around. I
agree. See, one really great point I want to make, that Nick Saban, who, by the way, is incredible.
Excellent as an
analyst.
Listen,
or
Game Day saved Game Day by 2 acquisitions, Pat McAfee and Nick Saban. Unbelievable.
I mean, he's incredible. And he made a comment that I think everybody should really go back and listen to on Game Day. And he didn't call anyone out, but everyone knew who he meant. And he said, the difference between these playing in the SEC and playing in one of these other conferences is the physicality on both sides of the ball on the interior defensive and offensive line. And if you're not sure about that, you just need to look at a recent championship game where you saw what Georgia did to a certain opponent, TCU. Mm-hmm. It was, and everyone goes, you're referring to TCU. And he goes, he wasn't going to call them out.
Right.
But that's the difference in manhood between conferences.
Mm-hmm. See, and that's how I feel about Boise State getting into the playoff. They're in the Mountain West Conference. They have the 78th ranked schedule, I think, strength of schedule, which is, I think, the lowest, or I would say the highest, the highest number amongst any playoff team. I feel like, Ashawn Genty's amazing, but he's running against teams in the MAC, or the Mountain West Conference. When he has to play a Georgia, a Texas, they don't have the same lines, the defensive lines that a Georgia would have or a Texas would have, or even a Penn State, I feel like would be a really hard team to run.
That's a great point, Pete. And let me touch on that point. So as I look at the bracket for the playoffs, I see SMU playing Penn State, right? And I just see trouble for SMU going up to Happy Valley in the snow, 100,000. They have no fans. It's going to be cold. Their defense stands up. But here's to your point. Penn State then will go to Boise State.
Yep.
Or they'll go to a neutral field and play Boise State. And exactly what you just said is going to come to life. Penn State's going to put 10 in the box and tell this kid, if you're beating us, you're beating us.
Yeah.
No, your quarterback's not beating. You're beating us. And they're loading the box. Andy, Abdul Carter, the guy we spoke about. And that's your point, Pete, right there. That's what you're talking about. Now you're not playing against these. And that's not to take anything away from Ashton Genty. But
great back.
Is he running for 250 a game in the SEC? That's what you're talking about.
Here's the only devil's advocate that I can put to that. All right, because is he running for 250 in the SEC? Now you're giving him an SEC offensive line.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So
right. And like when we were talking, Andy, I think we said last week when we were comparing, Lazo looked up the total yards, career season yardage leaders of all time, rushing, and Melvin Gordon was number 2, and I was like really surprised that he had that many yards behind Barry Sanders. And then we said, yeah, but he ran behind 5 guys. Barry Sanders did that without 5 guys.
Right.
And just to add to your point,
you understand? That's the difference of those lines, and that's what you're referring to. And yeah, there's a big difference running behind an SEC line. Yeah, so maybe that. Yeah, but you're right with what you said. Your assessment's dead on. It's hard to really. You don't take anything away from the kid, and I actually saw an interview with him last night. He's really humble pie.
Man, he's great.
Good kid, man. Like, you cheer for a kid like that. But the SEC is just a different level, man. It just is.
So it is. And here's something that stood out. Lazo, you want to get something in?
No. I'm just going to say out here, Ashton Genty just needs 131 yards for the single season record. Just putting it out there. 131 yards seems like a walk in the park for him at this point.
Well, you got to also remember, he's getting more games.
It won't be in Penn State.
But he's also getting more games, too.
It's an asterisk. There's no question.
This playoff didn't exist when these records were being set.
Yeah, it's an asterisk.
Yeah, no, it's an asterisk. No doubt. It's an asterisk.
Here,
not to take anything away, but
here's something for you. SMU is at Penn State, 12 o'clock game. Line open up at 8.5. It's already at 9. Here's the question. That's not the question. The question is this. If SMU is at Alabama, how much is Alabama favored by?
15.
2 touchdowns, I think.
Easy.
Right?
Yeah.
Easy.
2 touchdowns.
Easily, right?
For sure.
At Alabama, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. And then it goes to 14.5, and then you're deciding, do I want the extra half or do I just buy Bama back? Yeah.
So that's a good point. Really quick, before we go into the playoff selection and give our opinions there, let's give a shout out to Army, 11-1. We tried betting against them this year. That failed.
Do the Marines play next week?
Yeah. And at Tulane, I don't know what happened to Tulane, but obviously they didn't play on Friday.
They got swallowed by a green wave.
Yeah.
Boy.
God awful.
Well, I have jokes, man, but I'm going to just keep them. You know what I mean? Some days feel better than others to joke.
All right. So let's get
I just can't wait to get to the commentary of some of my Instagram posts, but we'll say that for later.
Let's get into the playoff bracket. One of the things that stood out to me in the bracket is how they paired Georgia on the other side of Texas and Tennessee, and they put Ohio State, on that side as well, where they're trying to get a Georgia-Texas trilogy, in my opinion, just from looking at the bracket. Just stood out.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you. We spoke about that yesterday when it came out, but I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't. I'm very unimpressed. I think Georgia has exhausted all their gas. to get to this point. There are very lot of credit and respect. It's Kirby Smart. This is just about a game-to-game situation. I just think they've exhausted their gas, and they willed their way through on adrenaline with a backup quarterback at home, basically, and that you know what a home crowd can do to push you over the edge, make you feel bigger than you are, right? And I think they've reached the end of the road, man. I just do. Even though they're playing in the Sugar Bowl, and then if they win, they could end up in Atlanta again, playing another home game. But I just don't think they're like that. I think they're the most suspect second-rated team. Well, TCU was the 2-ranked team 2 years ago, so that wouldn't be a fair comparison. But for a playoff seeding, I think they're a very vulnerable number 2. And we said before the game last week that Texas and Georgia will just flip-flop. And that's what happened. Texas is 5 and Georgia's 2. They're a very suspect number 2, but they have they don't have a difficult ride. Let's just say.
I mean, by committee standard, they should be out of the playoffs. They lost their starting quarterback. Just like they did the FSU Seminoles last year. Lost their starting, not the same team. They're out. By committee standard.
The one difference I'm going to tell you, though.
That was a joke, though.
I know. You can't do it on the.
Yeah, no, I know. The one difference I'm going to tell you is Georgia's defense will show up on their own, minus the offense.
Yep. That defense
That I
is for
can
real.
tell you.
That defense is for real.
So it's not a fair comparison, but that analogy is understood.
And here's the thing, Georgia. What bothers Georgia's defense is, again, athletic quarterbacks that can run, and they have a lot of motion, jet sweep type of offense. Notre Dame, Riley doesn't scare you. I mean, he can run a little bit, but he doesn't scare you.
No.
Then you got the kid from O'Rourke from Indiana. That doesn't scare you. And then you get into a game against Penn State. Does that really scare you? Georgia has a shot. Georgia has a shot to get there.
100% they have a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
They got the right seeding in the right bracket.
Yeah. And that kid, Gunnar Stockton, the backup quarterback, he didn't flinch. He got in that game, did what he had to do. He threw that pick. It was a bad ball. What can you ask from a freshman in that type of situation? But I thought, considering the situation, he played okay. Good enough.
If Georgia wins,
Good enough to
if
win.
Georgia gets to the title game, it's going to be on their defense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Their defense is winning this. Yeah. They can't get in a
that's
shoot. They can't get in a shootout with anyone.
This is going to be an all-time defensive
Correct.
performance for them to win this thing.
Yeah.
I also
Because
don't see them getting in a shootout with either Notre Dame or Indiana. Like, I think they'll control defensively.
No, there's no shootouts with those teams. Those are Cheddar Bob moments. They shoot themselves in the foot.
What a great reference. God, that's funny.
Who's gonna know where that reference
Come
came
on,
from?
8 Mile.
No,
Eminem.
I'm saying, like, you know how many people don't know that reference?
Maybe.
Get with the program, man. What can I tell you?
Every once in a while, I'll put the final rap battle just to hear him go.
Yeah. So that's it. It's going to take an all-time defensive performance for Georgia, in my opinion, to win this thing. And it's up for grabs. There's no gimme. You pick any team. You got a shot.
Yeah.
Any team.
Do you think the committee got it right? The seeding?
No.
Listen.
No. I think they got the playoff teams right.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they got the playoff teams right because, and we'll get back to we're going to talk about Miami, of course. Like, this was a perfect year for them to win this national title, Miami. It was set up, man. It really was. This is a winnable field, right? It's a winnable field. And with an offense like they had, they could have went bananas, and their defense would have gotten raped also, but their offense would have kept them in it. And there's just no dominant squad. I think what we would have wanted to do is avoid probably a cold weather situation, which we would have done, we being as a Miami fan, which we would have done because they would have had a bye. So they're not going to a cold weather location. They're playing in a dome.
They would have been playing in the Sugar Bowl with the 2 seed.
Yeah, with a bye.
with the bye.
You know, on a
And
fast track.
and they would have had a great road if they would have been that number 2 seed.
Man, they would have, no question in my mind, been in the final, in the championship game.
Yeah.
There's no question. So that's why, like, and we're going to get into it, I know. But, like, that's why when all these listen, man, you had it. It was there for the taking. It was so set up. You can't be any more set up. Generational quarterback and everything to win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Look in the mirror.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So
And so it's it's a wide open tournament. I'd love to see a team like Arizona State stun their opponent just because it's a good story, but you can't hide 350-pound linemen from 260-pound linemen.
Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be one of these teams with the beef inside, man.
Right.
That comes away with it. And if we're making an early pick, I'm just going to give you mine right off the bat. And it's not because I think either team is great. You have to pick someone. I think Oregon goes down because I don't like their draw. I think they ended up I think they got a bum hand. I think they got really dealt a bum hand for winning. They got penalized for winning. And I just think Ohio State, if they beat Tennessee, I think Ohio State can take Oregon out. That weakness is that quarterback for Ohio State. I just don't buy. I don't buy his stock at all. At all. If Ohio State doesn't win, it's because of him. But I'm picking Texas over Penn State
in the final.
And it's not because I love Penn State. I just think they got the right matchup. They're going to beat SMU. I think they're going to beat Boise State. And I think in a matchup against Notre Dame, their defense will control Riley Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
That's my reason for picking Penn State right there.
Yeah, I told you this yesterday when I saw the bracket. I said, you asked me, who do you think? Or you were telling me, I said, listen, let me tell you what I think, and if it matches yours. I see Penn State with the easiest road to the championship.
Because I really think Notre Dame can beat Georgia. So when I said controlling Riley Leonard, I see Notre Dame beating Georgia. I think their defense will be too much for Georgia's backup quarterback, and they don't have a running game. It's not because Georgia's not. There's no great team. Oregon's the closest to a great. If there's a great, Oregon's the closest there is to a great team, and they're not great. They can be had, certainly. They beat Boise by 3. They beat Ohio State by 1, and they beat Penn State by a touchdown and held on. So they're not indestructible, right? And I think this is the type of season, and we've seen it week to week, and I've kept pounding this point home. You can't make projections. You got to go week to week. You got to go week to week. So you remember when I took Texas A&M 2 weeks ago over Texas? Texas people were giving me the hate. Now I got them winning the national title. It's not biased. It's not personal. It's a week-to-week setup. So you got to go with what's at you. So what have we learned this season? This season specifically, expect the unexpected. Florida State was ranked, and this is no dig, I promise, but preseason they're ranked top 5, top 10, and look how they finished up. And you can look at some other teams similar too, right? Look at those arguments. Like, there shouldn't be rankings that early on in the season. It's not. You don't know who's coming back and how the portal was. You don't have continuity. Everyone's starting out from scratch, And that's why when it used to be, when you had 15 returning starters or 17 returning starters, you felt great about your team. Mm-hmm. You knew you were in it. That's why I like that Miami 2001 team. Man, we had so much coming back from two. We knew it was our year or bust. So when I make the commentary, like regarding Miami in this year, like it was set up. When you got the perfect dynamic, you take advantage of it. When opportunity presents itself, you jump on it. You don't let it get dictated to you by someone else. You control it. And they suffered a horrible loss, man. Georgia Tech, they got a mulligan. By losing that game, they still got a reprieve. and they had a chance to make themselves right and make amends by just beating Syracuse, and they didn't. They didn't. And that's it. That's a winnable. They should have won that game. That's a winnable game. So I say expect the unexpected, and you might as well just make a selection that you feel solid about. Like, you know what? I think defensively this team can match up and go the distance. I just think Georgia has lost too much offensively, and now with their quarterback on top of that to an already suspect offense, it's too much.
I agree.
That's my opinion.
Hold on.
I think Texas.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Well, you can proceed. Anything else you want to mention about Georgia, or you want to just jump into? You just want to jump into UM?
Yeah. All right, we'll jump into UM. We know what it is with the playoffs already. So let's just get the complete reaction and the analysis to the Miami season, and I'll let you ask the questions. And this is for anyone who loves me or hates me or whatever.
Are they stale?
Just like that, good baby, stale like Mario Cristobal.
Like his defensive, like his
Bite?
coaching. Yeah, I'll take it.
Hey, Lazo, catch.
Lazo's been dying for us to open these. Wow,
Andy, I remember you had a comment.
it's pretty good.
You had a comment that was directed at me from somebody.
Hold on, I gotta get rid of the trash.
That's about as
the
weak
guy,
as our
and the
our
guy
coaching
had
staff.
commented. The guy had commented to you, tell Shapiro to keep his opinion. Mario's just fine. We don't need his input. How do you feel about that today, buddy? You know what I mean? And I got the big bomb. You already know what I know as far as what I want to share, but I'm going to drop it. You know what's going on. For all those guys who think that I don't know what I'm talking about.
I got a couple guys like that too.
Like Lewis from 305. Lewis, let me tell you something. You have to do an acid trip to dream about the life I've lived. And that's including prison. You wish you could live that life. And the same for the rest of you jamokes that say the same thing about me. The big star, when you come at me with an outfit like that, bring some game, dog. Seriously, man. I don't want to turn this into a porn show, but look, I've had more wool than the Humane Society. I know you spend a lot of time paying for porn on TV. I know it.
Why don't you paint a picture for the audience that's not going to be able to look him up right away? What does this guy look like?
I look at you. Come on, man. Keep it a buck.
Oh man,
You guys are still recovering from me 20 years later? Kenny Dillingham, he recovered in 1 year.
Yeah, that's the one I always see in the comments.
What do you got, lupus?
You ruined the program.
Oh, yeah, I ruined it. No. I spared it. We would have had Al Golden running around with his fucking stupid tie. All right, listen, let's move on.
it was a cute
So,
You know what? I'm gonna get you a tie for Hanukkah.
No, I'm not gonna.
A tie for Hanukkah.
I will
me
say
tell you
this,
something.
Nevin. Mad props to Al Golden. Rain, sleet, snow, 200 degrees outside. That man was in a tie and long sleeve shirts, sweating through it. I'm like, I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it.
listen, Lewis from 305 and the Big Stir. I'd like to show you my female resumes, and I'd like to see yours. Yours look like the guy to Andy's left.
That's not me. I'm to the right.
I'm just saying that's a pretty.
I mean, are we having this discussion? Any of you people out there that want to shoot at me, you will never win a verbal war with me. I'm Buddy Love. You couldn't have, I have crocodile skin. You couldn't affect me in any, I will shit on your self-esteem. You have no idea what you're getting into, but ask anyone who knows me. All players. And when I'm speaking and I'm speaking out on behalf of the former players that are telling me to say a lot of stuff because they're afraid to say it because they don't want to lose their sideline passes from Coach Cristobal. No longer Mario.
No longer Mario.
Is that him behind you, Andy? Oh.
What, the tree?
Here, I just got a text from a Miami fan. Mario, our coach, turned caviar into a Pop-Tart. Wait, you think I'm kidding?
You got some insight that you showed me.
Oh, can I read it?
Yeah, read it. Go for it. Read it.
Okay, so
It's the love hour.
So this is for all those Miami fans who think it's like just me, like I got a personal beef. No, I have the same expectation that you guys have. There's too much talent there. There's a lot of talent there now. But this is a text message that I got from someone very much in the know, who's a fan, not a former player. You know how I feel about Mario and this staff. So after watching real coaches coach this weekend, it's clear to me we will never see the promised land under Mario. His ego is too big to have real assistants who know how to coach and develop talent. We had one of the easiest paths to the ACC title game imaginable, and he choked. He had a generational talent at quarterback and still came up short. All due to piss poor coaching. I'm sick and tired of hearing the bullshit about our secondary or whatever excuse people want to make. It was coaching, plain and simple. If players don't show improvement by the end of the season, it's not the player, it's the coach. Over on the offensive side, they were more enamored with watching Cam improvise than coaching and calling the right plays. At 21-0 in the Syracuse game, we should have gone to ground and pound, killing the clock and keeping the ball out of Cuse's hands.
I made that point. Yep.
Miami is the worst coached 10-2 team. We owe this 10-win season to Cam Ward. Mario will return to 6-6, or maybe if we're lucky, 8-4 next year. Championships aren't won in the portal. They are won through talent, development, and coaching. That's from a Miami fan to me. Okay? Now let me keep going. Mario focuses way too much on recruiting. Nevin Shapiro called him an $80 million recruiter, and he's 100% spot on. And that's just one fan's analysis.
And I thought there's
Now, I
funny.
didn't write that.
Yep.
And you know I sent it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's many more. So for all the Miami fans that want to come at me, you could come at me from 15, 20 years ago or whatever that was. But there were circumstances to that. Let's talk about today. You can't live 20 years ago, okay? The Red Sox didn't win for 100 years because they traded Babe Ruth, right? They kept blaming that. Listen, I used an example. I used it as an example on our show last week, Andy. Duke, Manny Diaz, 9-3, 1 game difference. Indiana, Kirk Cignetti, 1 year, 11-1 in the playoff. SMU, Rhett Lashley, whatever his record is now, 11-2, 2 years in the playoffs. And, of course, Kenny Dillingham now, which I didn't even have in that list, in the playoffs, 2nd year. And Fran Brown, Syracuse, 9-3, ranked top 20, 25. But 1 game difference with a whole lot less talent than what Mario has. So what's the excuse? What's the excuse? The defensive coordinator? That's his responsibility. He hired a guy who's a bum. And I'm telling you, I'm getting it from the former players that they want Randy Shannon as the defense coordinator. I'm telling you flat out. People could tell me, fuck off, drop dead, eat shit. I don't get whatever. I'm telling you, this is what's coming at me from a lot of guys. Because they know what he'll do with 5-star talent at that side of the ball, not as a head coach, to be clear. Oh, he sucks. Listen, I don't have the best relationship with Randy Shannon. It wasn't like we were exchanging, holiday greetings. But someone's got to run that defense. This guy, Lance Guidry, can't. And he's part of the problem. There's more to it. And there's a major news storm coming, which you know of. So things are about to get shaken up over there a little bit. And you know what's going on with the money situation. You know it firsthand, right or wrong.
Right.
So.
And it's very evident. You don't have to take my word. And I made some comments just knowing the situation. And you got your sources as well. And your sources said, tell your boy he's right. Exactly. Hit it right on the head. And, the recruiting, I mean, they fell to 13. They were in the top 5, I think, going into the year with this recruiting class, and they fell to 13, I think. And I'm not 100% right on that, but or certain on that, but I'm almost certain they had a top 5 class, and they fell hard.
Yeah. So, let me address that situation also, as far as the gossip and the portal information and this and that. Miami's going to take their hits in the portal, just like everyone is. Miami's no different than anyone. There's going to be turnover in personnel. I think the biggest issue for Mario Cristobal, in my opinion, is he better get this coaching staff right, because it's not right. Okay, and it starts with the defense coordinator. That's one.
Is there any talks of Jason Taylor maybe becoming the defensive coordinator?
I've asked that question. I don't know. From what I've been told from the guys that I speak to a lot of guys, but from what I've been told, there's a lot of guys that don't really care for him from the former crew. I don't know if that has to be because they played in the league with him. You never know. There's egos involved, and I can't answer that question. I don't know. But I could tell you this: Mario passed on Charlie Strong as the defense coordinator, which forced Charlie Strong to say, "Fuck this! I'm out of here. What am I doing? I've already been a head coach at Louisville, Texas. You know what I mean?" But I think he was a much better coordinator than he was a head coach, Charlie Strong. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question about Jason Taylor. Is it too early? He can't do worse than that guy did.
I agree.
So
Jason's a good guy too.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't give you the answer to that question, but there's definitely got to be some changes on that coaching staff for sure. And I'm just told that he's like, the honeymoon's over. The honeymoon's over. If they don't make the playoffs next year, his job's on the line. I'm telling you. Friends, no friends, high school chums, what? Listen, man, that's a lot of money they paid him. Lincoln Riley, they're talking about getting rid of him. I said it a few weeks ago. Maybe it's cheap to get rid of him, Lincoln Riley. I don't have the exact answer, Andy. I just know what's not the answer. And this guy's running a dictatorship, and there's a lot of dudes that are not happy with him internally. And I'm telling you that for a fact. I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. There's no one who speaks to who I speak to. I promise you. And I get it from other sources, all tied in, And that's it. And I like Mario personally. I mean, I had a great relationship, but from everything I gather, he's just not that same guy. That's what I get from everybody. He's not that same guy. He's bougie now. He's a dictator. He got a lot of money. So, I know you want me to say that comment. I can't do it. I can't do it.
It's all good, man.
I know you want maybe next episode. No, but no one will believe it when I say it.
Right.
But you know it to be true.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, that's it. I think we're in the middle of a great ride. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think Miami's going to do a lot of things in the off season. They have no choice. There's a lot to replenish. Mm-hmm. They're not done with the transfer portal. I'm hearing Isaiah Horton's gone, the receiver, number 2.
What do you think of FSU getting a top 20 class after the disaster they had?
I think that's a pretty significant achievement, and there's nowhere to go but up for them because you can't be any worse. Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about two sides of the spectrum from where they were to where they are, and they can change it back.
Yeah. I got some insight. I got some insight over there. They're going all in.
Yeah.
They got that guy Tony White.
It's a whole different party.
Yeah, it's
a whole different party now, Andy. Like, this is an NFL roster now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You need a salary cap.
Yep.
You need a salary cap manager.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Oregon is cleaning up for a reason, which is part of my master plan, which what my plan is.
And for the people saying, "Oh, the salary cap's coming next year," that's just the revenue sharing for the schools next season. That doesn't mean the collective. I did some research into this and looked into it. Doesn't mean the collectives are going to be gone. So the collectives are not going to be regulated. They're not going away. The revenue sharing is happening, but and to my understanding, unless I didn't read this correctly, the NIL collectives are still allowed. You can still make money on your name, image, and likeness, and that's where the true money is going to be flowing from, where it's going to be the Wild Wild West. How do you stop it? How do you stop it? And whoever ponies up the most amount of money every year is going to have a shot to win.
You know, Andy, while you're talking about this, it brings something to mind. And, you know, I know we just started on this podcast this season, and whether you're getting love or hate for having me on or whatever it is, you know that I'm connected in the circles that I speak of, right? You know that. You've firsthand witnessed it. And what I'd really like to do is break out for you, and we'll maybe put together a show on why this NIL came about and what you read that I gave you.
Yep.
Who covered this whole thing up for the kids to not get paid?
You.
The NCAA.
Or the NCAA, yeah.
I went to them, and that was a big part of my situation with these people. And they put their head in the sand. And this is what you got. And is it the traditional college football that we all want it to be? No. Although it's exciting as hell, and it's never been a greater season. But the NCAA brought this on, and they're reaping what they sow. And there's no other way to put it. And for anyone out there who thinks I don't know what I'm talking about and I talk shit, I've never lied one time about any single comment that's been made about the University of Miami or collegiate sports or anything. I'll go in front of Capitol Hill, and I promise you the NCAA wouldn't show up to speak to me in front, open broadcast, public broadcast, because they know what I told them. I try to implement a payment plan for all athletes to start getting theirs. And it would have been less painful for the NCAA to take that initial toe into the pool 12 years ago than what's coming at them now. Because if they would have at least appeased the masses, they could have bought themselves probably 5 to 10 years. Oh, we tried this, and okay, now it's not enough. And they could have just continued to bleed the players, thinking that they gave them something. They still haven't given them. They still haven't given them shit. Let's be clear. The states have given them the NIL. The NCAA has given nothing. They were told to give it to them.
Yeah, it comes from a position of being greedy. It comes from a position of not having foresight. They should have gone on offense, and they could have set their own terms. But this ended up in court, and now it's a free-for-all.
And not only that, they're going to beg for the government to come in to rescue them.
Yep.
And regulate this. I promise you. And then what is the government going to do? Taxation. Like, where's ours? You know what they do. You do politics on your regular stuff, so you know how that works, right? And that's just the NCAA. They bought this situation. They got what they deserved.
Yep.
Bedlam. And these kids should make. If you could go to college for 9 years and keep getting paid, do it. I'm all for it. It's better than if you don't make the league. It's a higher paying job than if you don't make the league.
Right.
Entering society, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could tell you that I just learned that Oregon just offered a player X amount of dollars. Don't quote me on the amount. And if his career doesn't pan out, a job with Nike. And that's from a very reliable source.
I believe it.
Someone's father, a player's father, shared that with me. I said, well, the best thing you could do is hope your kid turns his 5-star status into the NFL and you take the job with Nike.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's going on. You know it. You see my messages.
Yep.
Right or wrong.
Yep.
So.
All right. Good?
Yeah, I'm good. You know, listen, I don't, you know, I just say it the way it is, man.
Yeah.
I got no dog in the fight. You know what I mean? Miami was my dog.
Yeah.
They went down against Syracuse. There's nothing to say. We don't belong in there. They know it. Who are we going ahead of?
Yep.
We belong in there in front of SMU?
Yeah.
We didn't make the championship game. We would have lost to SMU in the ACC championship. We'd still get in. And we wouldn't have lost to them. But we'd still get in.
Yeah.
That's it, man. No one to blame. Look in the mirror. Responsibility is a hard thing.
So next week we'll come back on. We'll break down all the shitty bowl games, the Pop-Tart Bowl, and I don't even know.
We got to figure out who's playing first.
Yeah, that should all come.
It's not a matter of the teams. It's a matter of what players.
What players exactly? So the next week we'll go over.
Can I make one point before we get off?
Yep.
On the NIL thing, and I just think that this is, because the bowl games used to be very traditional and, what they meant. And it was always great. Bowl season was always great. You wake up, you watch 1-2 games a day as it starts going on towards the new year. I think as part of the NIL obligation contractually, in order for these kids to maintain and keep all the money they get, they've got to see their season through. That's one way to ensure players come back for a bowl game.
Yep.
That's not for me. That's for higher powers. But I just think there's got to be some kind of accountability the other way, not to hurt the product, or else you end up with a Georgia-Florida State game last year, and that's not your fault. Or was that even Florida State really? Who knows? You know what I mean? So that's the only point I wanted to make. I meant to mention that earlier. And I just think there's got to be some kind of stipulations because these are employees now.
Agreed.
They're employees.
They're professionals.
They're employees.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're getting paid.
They're employees. Yeah.
Agreed.
So if you don't show up to work, what happens?
Yep.
So that's it, man.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week. We'll break down every bowl game. We'll break down the playoff games, and we'll go from there. Excited to see what the month of December is going to look like and what we end up with at the end of it.
Yeah. Great season, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
All right, brother.
Speak soon.
Peace.
Going for the corner. Touchdown! And the kick is blocked. What is he looking at? What a hit!